Hey, this is David Johnson, running back of the Arizona Cardinals, and you're listening to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast.
Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast, coming to you from the FantasyJocks.com studios with your hosts, Andy Holloway, Jason Moore, and Mike Wright.
Welcome to the show. Welcome to the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. I am Andy Holloway. I'm joined by Mike, the Fantasy Hitman, Jason Moore.
Hello.
And soon, David Johnson.
I said hello for you because you didn't give me a gap to say hello for myself.
Well,
so
all right.
Hello from me and Jason.
Welcome into the pod. Great show today. Great quick questions. Going to be talking about backfields that we may want to avoid in 2017. And
I'll tell you one of those backfields we don't want to avoid. It's the Arizona Cardinals backfield. Am I right?
yeah, who's on the show today?
David Johnson.
David Johnson, superstar running back for the Arizona Cardinals, joining us for a few minutes on today's show to talk fantasy football, to talk injury recovery. We'll ask him about Chad Williams. We'll ask him about John Brown. And very excited to share that interview with you, the listener, today. If you want to find us on Twitter, check out @theFFBallers. That's our Twitter feed. That's where you find out all the latest news about this show, special episodes, ways that you can get involved in our fantasy football community and enjoy playing fantasy football even more in 2017, because that is what we're all about. Isn't that right, Jason?
Oh, yeah. You got to have fun, and most of the time you have fun winning.
Yeah, so you got to win. You got to win, and winning is fun. And so we will help you accomplish both of those goals. All right, guys, as I said, quick question of the day. Are there any team backfields that you want to avoid that you personally are completely avoiding in 2017?
Ooh, I'll jump in here, and I just want to share the quick reminder that we have some travel this week, so we are recording this early in case any news has broken that
That we're not currently talking about.
correct. The backfield I'm avoiding more than likely would be the Seattle Seahawks. And it's crowded with Eddie Lacy, Thomas Rawls, CJ Prosise. And granted, this makes me sad because I love CJ Prosise. I love Eddie Lacy. But that offensive line still terrifies me. How effective is Eddie Lacy going to be coming off of his injury with his conditioning problems? Will CJ Prosise be more than just a third down back, an occasional third down back? How much is Thomas Rawls going to be a factor, if at all? There's just there are so many questions here and so many moving parts that I'm not sure I want to be in on this backfield given the ADP and the overall upside of taking any of those guys.
So oftentimes, avoiding a backfield doesn't mean you don't believe someone will emerge. It means that you don't have a good read on who that's going to be and how long it's going to take. So for me, I'm going to go with the Detroit Lions. With a caveat. I am not avoiding them in PPR formats, but in a standard league, I am going to fully
That's fair.
avoid the Detroit Lion backfield. They are in the bottom 10 in terms of percentage of run versus pass, which is a concern. And you have Amir Abdullah, you have Theo Riddick, and
Zach Zenner.
Yeah, Zach Zenner. Whomever else emerges for a carry here and there, it concerns me in a standard format to draft anybody from the Detroit backfield. Even though I believe somebody may emerge as a fantasy weapon, I'm going to avoid
his name rhymes with Shamir.
Shamir.
Shmabdullah
He's
will
been
emerge.
smeared all over the injury reports.
Oh, he's going to emerge.
I actually love this pick in the Detroit Lions. I really
as
do.
one to avoid?
No,
I love to hate them. Is that what you're saying?
I think it's good advice to avoid a team that is not a good running team, that's crowded, and I completely agree with that. That changes in PPR because they are a pass first team. Theo Riddick in PPR is an RB2 that you can get super late. I took a look at a lot of the teams this morning in preparation, saying who do I want to avoid. I kind of personally want to avoid the Green Bay Packers situation because I'm not quite as much a believer in Ty Montgomery as I know you are, Mike,
yes,
and some others in the industry.
I believe they ran the ball the least of any team last year.
Yeah, that's
in the top three of.
That's part of the problem. They go out and they clearly showed what the truth was according to their team and who they drafted. They picked up 2 running backs in the draft. It's just murky to me. It's not that I don't think Ty Montgomery can do it. It's that I don't want to invest the pick to see if he will. But the team that I think when I go through the entire league where I go, I'm confident I'm not drafting someone from that team is actually a team with 2 good running backs, and that's the New York Jets. I love Blah Pow, but his ADP, his average draft position, is way too high.
He's on that train.
He's he's the second in a timeshare. I think the New York Jets are going to be a horrific team, which usually benefits the pass-catching guy, which in this case would be Bilal Powell, but his average draft is too high. Whereas Matt Forte, he's going to be a steal late in drafts for a couple weeks, but I don't believe he can continue at the current age. We saw this last year. We saw him start to drop off already, not only in staying healthy, but also when he came back, he didn't look the same.
His efficiency was gross last year.
Do you feel like either of those players factor into the future for New York?
Not really. Bilal Powell's older than most people think.
Let's see, 27, 26?
You got a guess, Andy?
I'm going to guess he's 28 years old.
Whew. 28 would be the correct age.
Wow, he's 28?
Yeah, I don't think either of those guys factor into their long-term plans at the running back position. Now, they didn't draft somebody that would take over this year.
This year, yeah.
But it does cause you to pause a little bit. And
if either of those guys did great this year, I wouldn't be shocked. I'm just not willing to take the gamble on either of them based on either where they are in their career in Forte's case or where they are in a draft in Bilal Powell's case.
Makes a lot of sense. All right. If you want to win a Lev Bell jersey autographed by Lev Bell, not by us or anything like that, just Lev Bell signed his own jersey. And if you want to win that, go to footclangiveaway.com for your chance to win. It's completely free to enter.
That reminded me of allow myself to introduce myself.
Yeah, that's right. Well, actually, I'm going to introduce somebody else right now.
Oh!
We had the chance.
Professional transition.
To sit down with David Johnson just before Father's Day. We're going to share that conversation with you right now. Hope you enjoy it.
You talking to me?
All right, the fantasy footballers are excited to once again bring in great friend of the show, David Johnson. How are you doing, David?
I'm doing good.
Awesome. We appreciate you coming on with us again. Father's Day just around the corner, and we know you are a new dad. How's that life treating you?
It's definitely a life changer, but, I'm loving it. I'm loving it for sure. DJ, our son, he's a tremendous baby. He's always laughing, always smiling. And right now he's starting to have a huge personality, so we're loving it.
Yeah, that's awesome, and I'm sure you're excited as he grows to get into football as well. One of my sons is just starting to get into sports, and it is super exciting.
Oh, yeah, for sure. We already have footballs around him. We have tools, and, we have funny little knickknacks like a dumbbell rattle and stuff just to get him,
super strong.
Get him used to lifting weights.
Yeah, well, you're starting him very early. I appreciate that. I'm sure fantasy owners appreciate it too. So, hey,
for sure.
I wanted to bring this up. Last year, obviously, hugely successful season for you personally. I'm sure with as big as fantasy football is, you had fans everywhere, much like us, praising you for what you did for their fantasy teams. But you had a tougher season as the Cardinals struggled and didn't make the playoffs. So my question for you is, how do you appreciate that personal success when the team struggled?
It's good to have personal success, but it really doesn't mean too much, especially when the team is struggling. And I feel like a lot of it was that I didn't do as much as I should have. The things that people don't know, like those fantasy owners, they don't know, like, those mental errors I've had in those games that, cost us. So just for one game, for instance, is the Rams game at home. It was a blitz coming, last-minute drive, and I didn't pick up the right guy. He ended up rushing Drew to throw the ball, And, we didn't get that chance for him to have a good, clean pocket to throw it. So it's obviously good to have the personal, but it really does not mean too much when the team is not doing well.
I think that's really an interesting answer, too, because we live in a stat-driven society where you just see the rushing yards and the touchdowns and the receptions. Some of those things, we're not tracking blitz pickups in fantasy football, but I think it's great that you are focused on improving those things. As a fan of you and what you do on the field, that's great that you are acutely aware of how to get better even when it doesn't equate to, the next rushing yard.
That's for sure. That's definitely true because the things, like you said, the blitz pickup, that's what keeps me on the field, and ultimately that helps out those fantasy owners, but really it does help out the team, and that's one of the things I really am trying to work on this year, going into this next season, is blitz protection and knowing blitz fronts, blitzes that are coming, defensive fronts, and knowing my assignment or which guy I'm supposed to pick up. And really the biggest thing for blitz protection is technique. So, 70% of it is closing the gap and making sure I have the right leverage or advantage over who's blitzing me, knowing which guy is coming. If it's a linebacker, knowing his techniques, or if it's a DB, knowing what kind of moves they do. So that's really the thing I'm really trying to, focus on going on this next season.
All right, let's talk about the injury you suffered at the end of the year. You were sitting there primed to break that record for the most consecutive games with 100-plus yards from scrimmage, and then you go down. So what was going through your head? I think we're curious. Everybody watching was freaking out a little bit. What was going through your head? Did you know it wasn't a serious injury? How concerned were you?
Right at the impact, I was super nervous, super extremely frustrated, and wanting to know if it was as bad as it felt at first, with the initial hit with my knee. But, once I started calming down, the trainers came on the field and started doing a field examination, and they figured out that the ligament was still intact and that my knee wasn't floating, I guess is what most of the trainers explained, and it wasn't doing that. And then when I got up to walk around or walk off the field, it wasn't as painful as I thought it would be. So I felt a little bit more relieved walking off the field. And then when I got in the locker room, even more relieved once my adrenaline slowed down, and I felt like it wasn't as bad as I thought it was. And that's the biggest thing, is I was just glad that it wasn't a serious injury. It was just, even after they diagnosed it and everything, it was only a grade 2 MCL, so it wasn't bad. And the only reason it was grade 2 is because how swelled up it got. If it wasn't so swollen up, it probably would have only been a grade 1. So, I'm definitely blessed, and God was looking out for me on that play.
Yeah, we're certainly thankful that it wasn't more serious, but I know it took some rehab. How are you feeling about it now?
I'm feeling great. Got cleared a while ago, before OTA started, before football started, and I was already training. Only like 6 weeks after the injury, I was already doing squats and running and cutting and everything. So I've been feeling good, been feeling excited for this next season coming up, and I'm ready to go.
Awesome. Here's a question for you. Kind of ties into it, and we'll get into some fantasy football questions as well, but fantasy folks, they talk about versatility. They talk about handling a big workload and being able to catch the ball, and these are things you did amazingly last year. Is this something that, with the injury at the end of the year, do coaches concern themselves with this workload? Do you concern yourself with the workload? Is that something you're going to be thinking about at all, or do you feel very confident that you can handle whatever the coaches give you, even if that means, 300-plus carries?
I feel very comfortable. I feel like I'm still young, still in my first contract. I feel like I still am able to carry on a big workload, and I'm excited. I want to carry on a big workload where I can be on the field even more, doing as much as I can for the team. And I think BA has mentioned that I was going to get 30 touches a game, and I'm excited for it. And especially since last year, it didn't go, it didn't finish the way I wanted to personally. And obviously as a team, I wanted to do more. for the team. So I definitely, one of my biggest goals this year is to have that 1,000 receiving yards, because I felt like I could have had it, or I was so close to having it towards the end, at the end of the last game. So I feel like that's one of the biggest things I really want to do personal-wise, is getting that 1,000 rushing and 1,000 receiving.
Yeah, that would be we'll take it. We'll take it as well. So as Cardinal fans and as fantasy fans. So tell us a little bit about what you've seen. A couple names come to mind for us. John Brown dealt with some medical issues last year. Some of those have been diagnosed, figured out. I know he's dealing with some, I believe, a hamstring right now. And then Chad Williams comes in out of the NFL draft. What have you seen from both of those players so far in OTAs? What are your expectations for them?
Oh, they're looking great, especially John Brown, since, I'm so close with him. We have the same agency, and I talk to him all the time. And when I found out that it was that sickle cell, and I talked to him about how, he fixed it and stuff. And then when I watched him come back to training camp or to mini camp and OTAs, he was looking great, just like the old Smoke, where he can run the whole length of the field and come back and run it again and not look so tired or so gassed. So I feel like he's going to come back, have a great bounce-back season, and do good. And then Chad is our rookie. He's doing a tremendous job because he has such a great leader in Larry and all the other guys, and he's a bigger receiver than people would think of, and he has a great hand, and his route running is looking pretty good. So I feel like he's going to come up on the team and do a great job for us as well.
Awesome. A couple of years ago, we had Nick Mangold come on, the center for, at the time, the Jets. He came on, and he dropped Bilal Powell's name because Powell was doing some great things around camp. I think he wasn't on the radar for fantasy owners. Is there a player right now that maybe listeners don't know about, the general public don't know about, that you've seen that you'd like to share with us, somebody that's been impressing you around training camp?
It's been a lot. That's a good question. I'm going to have to say, like I said, I think that rookie Chad is doing really well. A lot of people don't know what's in stake for him, being a rookie, but I feel like he's going to be a good attribute to our team. And he's, like I said, he's been picking it up pretty well, and he's been doing a good job.
Jerron Brown doing well?
Jerron Brown is doing great. He hasn't done too much just because, his knee, but he's definitely looking great. He's looking great, and I feel like he's going to obviously come back and do what he did before his injury. He was, right before his injury, he was looking great, doing so much for the team, receiving-wise and everything. And then, unfortunately, that injury happened, but I feel like he's going to come back and be just like he was right before that injury, making those tough catches, doing those great routes, and helping out the offense as well.
Yeah, he's always been somebody that passed the eye test for me when I saw him on the field, able to go up and get the ball. All right, a couple last questions for you. First, last year we had you.
The people need to know,
David. The people need to know. We had you and we had Todd Gurley on the show, and Todd Gurley famously told you to sit down, and you proceeded to sit down all over the record book. Okay, so do you have any words for Todd in 2017, or have you already spoken through your actions?
Oh no, I have no words. I'm just gonna continue to do what I can and get better and learn. And he's a tremendous player, and I know he's gonna do the same thing and have a bounce back season as well. So biggest words I have for him is keep grinding, and we'll both be one of those leaders from our class.
Absolutely. So we really appreciate you coming on the show. Wish you the best of luck this year, and congrats again on being a new dad and having your first Father's Day with your son around. Don't work him out too hard, okay? And, hey, look.
No promises.
Yeah.
We saw you on Twitter. I saw you had a ping pong table, so the offer still stands. You want to come in here and get beat down anytime, you just let us know, all right?
That's a challenge. You guys are going to have to practice a little bit more.
Good. Oh, man, it's on now.
I got 2 tables.
There's no way you're winning, David. There's no way you would beat us. Of that, I am sure.
All right.
This is so great.
I think you underestimate me.
I think we're going to hear a ring at the door in a minute. So, hey, thank you so much.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. All right. Thank you, David Johnson, for joining us on the show. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, I think it was also telling. To me, my favorite part of talking to him was just seeing how much he cares about getting better and what he did wrong as opposed to what he did right. It just shows the type of man that he is, which I think is a very hardworking, diligent, good man. And that leads me to believe that he's going to do what it takes to get better, holistically at the position. If he's not your number 1 draft pick, I think you might be doing it wrong.
And I don't want to really disparage Lev Bell or Ezekiel Elliott out of that top 3 and say, they're not good men, but both have had a little bit of baggage in that department where David Johnson has not. And I can tell you from getting to sit down with him, we've all talked to him.
We're best friends now.
We are the best friends he has in this world.
It seems like we need a ping pong
until
battle.
we play ping pong, in which case he will not like us whatsoever because I will smash him.
Strong words, Andy.
That is on the record.
Strong words. Hey, he said that he's going to beat us. So
there's only one way to find out.
All this talk of him talking about his character. If he doesn't show up and play, he's a coward.
Oh, don't do that.
Oh,
Shots fired. Come on.
Oh, that is just too
we love
accurate.
David Johnson.
All right. You want to? We're going to jump into some questions, fantasy questions.
Before we jump into the mailbag, we want to thank today's sponsor, Omaha Steaks. Upgrade your summer cookouts with a big box of meat.
We can't do these reads before lunch, man.
You got to check out this special right now. For a limited time, you can get an exclusive savings of 80% on the very special combo, the Summer Sensation. The summer's here. Sun's out, guns out, grills out.
Yeah.
You got listen what's in this box. 2 half-ounce filet mignons, 2 top sirloins, 4 boneless pork chops, 4 chicken fried steaks, 12-ounce package of all-beef meatballs, 4 Omaha Steaks burgers, 4 gourmet jumbo franks, a 16-ounce package of Omaha Steakhouse fries, 4 caramel. I combined caramel and caramel.
Yeah, that was impressive.
Sounds delicious.
Apple tartlets seasoning package plus 4 more Omaha Steaks burgers. I'm struggling.
You're drooling during it is the problem.
Because it's so delicious. When you fire these things up on the grill, you can see it on our social media. This exclusive package is only $49.99. Go to omahasteaks.com, type fantasy in the search bar, add the Summer Sensation to your cart. Again, visit omahasteaks.com, enter code fantasy in the search bar to get this great package for $49.99. Have the best summer ever with Omaha Steaks.
All right, let's go ahead and answer some fantasy football questions.
Mailbag.
Yeah!
All right, if you have a question for the show, you can go to our website, thefantasyfootballers.com. If you mouse over the More button, you will see a Submit a Question button. You click that, send us your question, and we'll try to get it into the show. You can also dial our voicemail hotline, 302-464-TFFB, and leave us a voicemail question. We like to play those on the show as well. And we're going to get right into it right now. I'm going to start with this question from Lee in Los Angeles. Hi, guys. Love your podcast. My question is, how do you view Michael Thomas? Michael Thomas. Was he good last year because defenses were focusing on Brandon Cooks, or is he really that good? Is he a wide receiver one? And now I just changed him in our rankings.
Whoa.
This morning I moved him down a couple of spots.
Okay, is he still a 1 for you?
I believe he is still a 1 for me. I will confirm that because he was in the 9 range, so I'm guessing he dropped to about the 11 spot. But what is your opinion of the question where he's saying, hey, Brandon Cooks is out the door, the defense is not focusing on Brandon Cooks, who we know to be very talented?
Well, here's what you can do. So in our Ultimate Draft Kit, we've partnered with Matt Harmon from NFL.com, who charts out wide receivers and how successful were they independent of the quarterback, which in the New Orleans case, I mean, you don't necessarily have to do that because Drew Brees is so amazing. But Michael Thomas grades out fantastic. He is above average in nearly every single route possible. Every route on the chart he excels at. He has great hands. He was in the mid-70s, I believe, of catch percentage. I think that he is a tremendous wide receiver. The ball will be spread around. That's the concern for Michael Thomas, is you have to draft him very high. But I think that he comes through. I think that he will repeat as a low-end wide receiver 1 with upside.
Yeah.
And some people are saying, well, you're drafting him for his ceiling, and that may be what Jason is about to negative Nancy on me over here.
You might,
but Jason has him the highest of all three of us.
I was gonna say you might think that from the tone of my voice.
I
but
did.
Gotcha.
Oh,
Michael Thomas is great. I mean, he was the 88th percentile above against zone, against press, man coverage. He was the best rated rookie wide receiver since Odell Beckham. And when you look at the recent history of these great wide receivers who come out, have a historic, year one, we've talked about this recently. There's only been 4 guys in the last decade who have actually come out and have a wide receiver 1 in their rookie year. You've got Odell Beckham. You have Mike Evans, Kelvin Benjamin, and Michael Thomas. Now, after the first season, for each of those other 3, we here knew Kelvin Benjamin was set for regression. What you saw,
and then he didn't catch a single pass his sophomore year. What's up with that?
We nailed it with that injury. But before the injury, we thought he's going to regress. He didn't look the same on film. He wasn't like the other guys. The touchdown volume was a little bit higher than expected.
And it was very garbagey.
But the other 2 guys who, when you looked at film, you go, these guys are special. There's a reason they came out and were so good. They are still among the best. Odell Beckham and Mike Evans are 2 of the top 5 drafted wide receivers right now. Michael Thomas is that. And then you compare, you add in Drew Brees. I realize that there's going to be change. He's got a little bit more risk because, Brandon Cook's out. How will he fare against these coverages? But according to perception, he should be just fine in those coverages. I love Michael Thomas. I think he's the real deal. And when I watch film, the guy is great.
Yeah, I think it's a fair assessment. I think he is great. He's a competitor. He works to get better. To me, though, I worry a little bit about, you bring up Mike Evans.
Right.
Monster rookie year, touchdown-wise, you did see regression in that department, even though every projection and every thought had him going up. I moved Des Bryant ahead of Michael Thomas.
Okay.
I do have Michael Thomas at 11. So Evans, I wanted to look real quick at Mike Evans. Yeah, he was 12th his rookie year, then 24th, and then second last year. So I just thought that there was a little bit, no shade. It's not really shade. It's just
if Michael Thomas
reasonable
finishes the year as a wide receiver 2, and that if he's the wide receiver 15, that wouldn't shock me. I'm not saying he can't have but that would be a bad season. It
that
probably
would make fantasy owners disappointed.
Yes, correct.
All right, let's get into a voicemail question here and move on.
What's up, guys? My name is Jarrell. I play in a 10-team PPR league as well as point per completion league, which means the quarterback gets a point for every completion. I know it's weird, but I actually kind of love it. It opens up the quarterback pool. I'm looking for some late round value in a quarterback, untraditionally, that I could steal maybe late based on my current system. Thanks, and I'll be listening for the answer. Appreciate you guys.
It's a great question. We get this one from time to time in leagues that are formatted that way, and obviously it redistributes some of the value of these quarterbacks. One of the names that comes to mind outside of the top tier, I believe Ryan Tannehill finished very high in total completions.
For me, it's Andy Dalton. He's going to be the guy that the late round QB that I will likely be pushing all off season. I mean, the fall of his touchdown percentage last year is astronomical. I mean, he went from he's a career in the 5s guy. He went down to 3.2% of his passes for touchdowns. So he fell dramatically, and that was just the cause of that was the weapons. Everybody got hurt on the Bengals, and I think Andy Dalton is a prime positive regression candidate. And if he had simply thrown his regular touchdowns last year, he would have easily been a quarterback 1.
I think it is worthwhile to point out how things change. You know, Drew Brees is kind of the well-known completion talent at the top of those lists. Phillip Rivers, I think, is somebody you'd want to look at as well.
Certainly.
Definitely.
But if you look last year, 471 completions for Drew Brees. Russell Wilson had 353. So that's a big point per completion difference between players like that.
Yeah,
so
and
Joe Flacco had a ton last year too.
The guy that I would target, because he said it was a 10-team league, so we don't need to go too deep. We just need someone you can get a little bit later, and I've kind of talked them up recently. But Matthew Stafford is a guy who's always near the top 5 in completions. So not only is he already without the completion aspect, he's my number 8 quarterback this year. You can get him pretty late. But then you add in that he's one of the separators near the top of the pack in total completions because of all the dump-offs to the Theo Riddicks, just like Drew Brees has with his pass-catching running backs. That's the guy I think I would target. But I love Dalton, love Phillip Rivers.
Totally comfortable if Dalton, Rivers, Stafford, you just waited for 2/3 of those to be gone and then draft your quarterback. I'd love that.
I just want to throw out for you, don't let this change of quarterback scoring change how you view the position, though. If it's just one quarterback, I still don't care. I'm not going to freak out because this say, well, I got to get Rodgers, I got to get Brady. Just you can stay the course and still wait, build up your running backs, build up your wide receivers.
Well, it's ironic because Rodgers is not usually near the top in attempts and completions because he's just so efficient.
Yeah.
All right, Jake in Rochester, Michigan. In a full PPR dynasty league, would you rather have Christian McCaffrey and DeVante Parker or Joe Mixon, Michael Crabtree, and Theo Riddick?
Oh, this one's not even close. Not even close for me. It's Joe Mixon, Crabtree, and Theo Riddick.
Yeah,
that is my answer as well.
I lean that way as well. 100%.
I love the idea of having McCaffrey, but you still have the rookie young talent on the other side that a lot of us like even more in Joe Mixon.
Yep, I have him higher than
so
McCaffrey.
then you're looking at, okay, do you believe DeVante Parker is going to break out to excess of Crabtree, Riddick over the next few years? I probably take the Mixon side. But if I'm in full rebuild, I do think about the McCaffrey-Parker side.
Right, solely because Parker's 24, Crabtree's 29. If you're in full rebuild, I would consider that. Otherwise, I'm going to go in the reality is you're not in full rebuild here. Joe Mixon, Michael Crabtree,
too, so I think the
Theo Riddick, that's just a good – you're not in rebuild with those as pieces on your team.
In a full PPR, you don't think about McCaffrey over Mixon?
No, Joe Mixon is a pass-catching machine, and I believe that perhaps it's not this year, but by next year, Joe Mixon's a 3-down running back for that team. And McCaffrey, he's going to catch a lot of passes, but he has to share a backfield this year with Jay Stu.
You see that Joe Mixon news coming out lately?
Oh, yeah.
He looks like
Whoa, he's blowing out.
Looks like a beast.
Yeah, because he is a beast. He's a great player.
All right. Here we go. Another voicemail question from the listener.
Hey, guys. Sean from Boston. I need your help. 2 years ago, I joined a 12-team, 2-keeper league with my friends when I was just starting out fantasy football, and it has a flaw. The keepers are not according to values. They're simply just your first and second picks in the draft, which has led to some teams perpetually being awesome and other teams with almost no shot at winning. How would you suggest changing this system to something that balances out the league a little bit now that we're almost 3 years into the program? Thanks for the insight. Love the show. Looking forward to hearing from Jay Grizz.
Well, Jay Grizz has strong opinions.
Oh, that's a good point, Jay. It's a very good point, Jay Grizz.
When he started that voicemail and said, guys, I need your help, and it sounded the way it sounded, like he might have been trapped in a basement, I was ready to, run out of here and save this guy.
I was ready to do nothing.
Well, that fits your personality there. What have you been saying around the office?
Jason shakes his head negatively like he was about to get up.
Yeah, I was definitely going to go with Andy and help this young man in Boston.
Well, let's help him in this regard. I don't
think there's a problem with your league at all.
I don't either.
I can't fathom. Okay,
how are you perpetually perfect? Is there no trading in this league?
Well, and it's only a 2-keeper. Tell me who so let's say you've got Antonio Brown, right? That's one of the best over the last few years. But the other best would have been Le'Veon Bell
or Shady.
But because he hasn't been great the last 2 years, together because of injury or suspension, and
he's still been great. What are you talking about?
No, I'm just saying what combination
is an
be
auto win.
An auto win for any team, and then that could really only be one team. I think.
Yeah, you're not.
Our league we're in, we're a 3-keeper, and they're your first 3 picks.
Yeah, for 10+ years, and 2 players a team does not make.
I will say this: one of the things that I think is somewhat valuable is, you could institute a rule where you can't have 2 of the same position. Because
or 2
maybe
keepers
someone's
for more than 3 years or something.
Yeah, maybe someone has, the 2 best running backs in the league, and that ends up, year after year setting them up for success.
Say, what if you have Zeke and DJ?
Right.
It's very possible could have happened.
Yeah, so that would avoid that situation.
Can I ask you guys a question?
No.
Sure, Brooks.
I'm going to.
Yeah.
Do your 3-keeper league, do you have to keep 3 players?
Yes.
Okay. That's what it sounds like.
We can't keep multiples of the same position, basically.
Basically.
All right. Here's a question from John in Utah. What are y'all's opinions
Johnny Utah
on the Broncos receivers? DT is usually considered the wide receiver 1 on the team, but Sanders seems to put up more consistent numbers. Which one has the higher ceiling and why? I don't agree with you that Emmanuel Sanders puts up more consistent numbers than Demaryius Thomas. Demaryius Thomas is like, at this point in his career with the quarterback situation, I look at him like Jarvis Landry on steroids, because he has the potential to score double-digit touchdowns like he has in the past, but the last few years he hasn't. But he's good for 90-plus receptions, and he's a centerpiece of the offense. So there's no way I'm drafting Emmanuel Sanders over Demaryius Thomas for upside.
And I can tell you, we have we put out this really sweet update for the Ultimate Draft Kit where we tracked last year's consistency on a week-by-week basis, seeing how a player finished, were they a wide receiver 1, wide receiver 2, and it's great just at a quick glance. And I can tell you there is far more red happening in Emmanuel Sanders' chart than Demaryius Thomas. Sanders, I'm seeing 4 green weeks, which puts him at a wide receiver 1 4 times. And then Demaryius Thomas has
7.
Yeah, he was at least a wide receiver 2 or a wide receiver 1 7 times.
And if you look at their careers, Thomas is not only a year younger, but Thomas finished 5th, 1st, 2nd, 11th, and 16th over the last 5 years, where Sanders finished 5th, 20th, and 21st.
The one thing I would say in defense of Sanders is that he's probably got the better average draft position. Usually Demaryius Thomas is going a full round ahead, at least, of Emmanuel Sanders, and so maybe Sanders is the better value, the better guy to have, because the gap isn't that large between them. But if you're just picking one guy at the same spot, I agree with Andy. It would be DT.
All right, Josh in San Antonio. If Gronkowski were a wide receiver, where would he rank?
Ooh, that's a good question.
If Gronkowski were a wide receiver, where would you rank him? And I'm looking at my wide receivers thinking to myself, would I take him above
I'm going to pull up my actual point.
Well, yeah, the nice thing about that is you can just slide him right into, we've got the specific point projections. We can say, okay, we can do this for ourselves right now. It looks like to me I have Gronk in a half-point setting scoring 207.5 fantasy points. 207.5 fantasy points would make him my wide receiver 8.
Yeah, he was my 8 or
He'd be
my 9.
Des Bryant.
He'd be my wide receiver 9.
in a PPR format?
Yeah,
that was half point.
point.
For me.
Yeah, I did half point.
In mine, he would be about 8. Yeah, right around there. So.
Yeah, I mean, he's tremendous, but once again,
but his risk rating
carries
would be much
risk.
higher.
Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and let's go to this question from David in Fort Myers, Florida. Starting a new dynasty auction league. Okay, and for drafting, we're going to go old school email draft. Any tips or recommendations on how to approach this draft?
For an
auction? Man, that would be.
I'll see you in 6 years.
I've never
a
done.
A dynasty auction via email seems like it would actually take months. That is not an exaggeration.
The inaugural season will be 2018.
Here's my tip or recommendation for approaching that draft. Back away slowly.
So there will be if it's a 12 team and everyone has a 25-man roster, that's 300 players will be drafted. And
each one needs to be bid on by everyone in the league.
And what's the timer?
I think here's a tip. If you're doing this, it's got to be blind bidding.
That's a great idea.
If you're doing this, make every player that comes up, it's a blind bid.
And
so there's no going back and forth and haggling, because over email on a slow format, that just seems impossible.
Yeah.
But if everybody goes, okay, the next player up is Michael Thomas, and you send your email to some place. I don't know exactly how to do an email blind bid where I guess it needs to go to the commish who's not. I don't know. Figure that part's on you. That part is on you to figure out how to do
to email
the
someone
blind bidding
else to verify that his bid.
But
have you ever heard of
that would speed
Google
it up.
Hangouts? It's just a long. There's not an easy way to facilitate what you're talking about. That seems like one of the more difficult long. Like I'd want to be inside of an MFL or something.
I was going to say my fantasy league.
It.
We know that our writer, our boy Keaton, is in one, and it looks like, because I've never used it, so I can't speak to the specifics, but it seems like a player is nominated, and then there's a time limit set on for people to bid on that player.
There you go.
All right, here's a question, simple one. RJ in Rochester, New York. Who do you believe will be the fantasy MVP this year?
Ooh.
Now, we do a fantasy MVP episode later on this summer, but
so many factors
let's
to
just
consider.
pull a name out right now, because a fantasy MVP isn't necessarily the top-rated or highest-scoring fantasy player. It's maybe the player at the best value that scores the most points or has the ability to win you your league because you took them so late in the draft, like Joe Mixon. If he ended up a top 5 running back with where you have to draft him, could end up the MVP.
All right, so who you got, Mike?
I'm just pulling up an ADP right now to help me factor into this decision. I found one that I like, and he's a 5th-round pick. Currently, I think that he will stay right around there come the draft season. He may slide up into the 4th. It's Martavis Bryant. I think I believe he's a strong wide receiver 2. He carries wide receiver 1 upside with what he can do on the field, assuming he stays on the field. But I love Martavis this year.
I'm gonna go with Andy Dalton. You talked about him earlier, but if he finishes as a top 5 quarterback, I mean, Matt Ryan last year was that he was a fantasy MVP. He helped people win, get to the playoffs and have a great team because there's a guy you drafted in double-digit rounds. You had a stacked team elsewhere, and I think Dalton is the type. We've already seen him have a top 5 fantasy finish. His weapons are healthy and back and added to.
Well, Eifert is
sure. Eifert will never be healthy, but I'm just saying A.J. Green will be back.
I'm going to pick somebody from the upper echelon of
John
picks.
Ross is also not healthy. Dang it.
I'm going to go Rob Gronkowski.
Oh!
I believe Rob Gronkowski will be the fantasy MVP this year because you do not have to take him in the first round, and yet he has the ability to be the wide receiver 5 on in your tight end spot. So I'll go with Gronkowski, who has snuck up. I don't know where he was going, but he is at 209 right now.
Well, you can track and see where he was going.
Yeah.
He's actually no.
That's the lowest he's been. So
yeah,
209. With the ability to get him maybe in the early 3rd, he could win you a fantasy league.
Oh, man. Early 3rd round Gronk. Yeah. That is delicious.
That's a great pick because about every 2 or 3 years, Gronk is the fantasy MVP. I mean, just look at his games played, and when it's large,
he really is.
He's the fantasy MVP.
All right.
Next year, he's overdrafted.
Yeah.
Wookie of the year in Kentucky.
Wookie
in Kentucky.
Jason, hit him with the Wookie. Yeah.
Not bad. What is your favorite, or I'll repose this. Do you have any favorite draft day or pre-draft superstitious rituals?
Ooh. Well, Andy likes to drive slower than usual.
Well, I just like to make sure I get to the draft. I'm not sure that's a ritual of sorts, but if you want to say it's a
superstitious,
a routine. Well, I mean, no, it's not a superstition either.
He stays in the right lane.
If you drive
He's sucking
slower,
on his hard candy.
If you drive slower, you have a better chance of not dying in an accident.
Really large sunglasses on.
Wait, are you putting me in those?
Yes,
Are you putting me in the glasses you wear when you get out of the optometrist?
Yes, exactly. I was just putting you in the old person category.
I picked those glasses up after an eye exam, and I've just kept them.
Of course.
Because they're very protecting for the eyes.
What's shocking
They're delightful.
about Andy is he's extremely tall. You know, what, about 6'2"?
Sure, 6'2", 6'3".
You've never seen a 6'2" man sit closer to the steering wheel.
Okay.
I know, Mike, you are the one that seems to have the most draft day rituals in the sense
You wear
of
your hate blockers.
Yes.
You always wear your hate blockers, and you always
they're
pick a
not
song.
so much. Yeah, I'd say the song is crucial. I have a song that.
Do you got to pick this year?
I don't. Not yet.
Oh,
not yet. I will always get a song, and I play that during my
every time you make the pick, that music will come on, and to chastise your enemies, if you will.
Yes, and then the other stuff is not ritual. It's really just what can I think of that will be the most obnoxious to the rest of this room while they're trying to draft.
Like, can I give an example of maybe wrapping the banner of your team that you have printed around you as a cape and dancing around the room while Lionel Richie's All Night Long plays? Is that an example?
That's a possible example.
If that's wrong, I don't want to be right.
All right.
I hope you're not right in this draft this year. That's for sure.
All night long.
Hey, before we close out today's show, I want to encourage you to head over to ultimatedraftkit.com. Check out the brand new consistency charts. We referenced them on the show today. They are awesome. A quick and visual way to get a gauge at whether a player not only performs year to year, but week to week. A player like Brandon Cooks last year finished very high in the rankings, but were they reliable?
Were they helpful?
Were they helpful week to week in fantasy? It's really a great tool, just something else we built out for the Ultimate Draft Kit. So check that out at ultimatedraftkit.com. Thank you for tuning in. If we didn't talk about big news, remember we recorded this show a couple days early, so we'll get to it. We're almost back from New York City.
New York City.
And we'll chat with you soon. So thanks
Can't
for
wait to
tuning
get
in.
that salsa up there.
It's delicious. What is that, the paste?
No, Pace Picante is not New York City.
Right. Oh.
Check out fantasyjocks.com if you want to grab a football trophy. Our promo code is footballers. Goodbye.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Fantasy Footballers Podcast. Join our fantasy football community on jointhefoot.com and follow us on Twitter @TheFFBallers.